I wake up every minute with the fever dreams. I put the mind to a limit where it needs to be. I work blind, got vision I don't need to see. I'm picking mind over matter, I believe in me. I need to find more hours in the day to breathe. Need to find more power in the way I be. And when my mind turns out with the painful scenes, I need to scream out loud, I can't stop me. I wanna be the greatest like Rocky. You know I leave them all hating like a hobby. I'm out here making moves like a lobby. And if you ain't with me, it's you lost, see. I got my mind on the facts, I'm a python, grab what I like real fast. Choke until I have everything I attack, everything that I lack, everything that I want, and I see, matter of fact.
I'm my own worst enemy. Only if I let it be. I can control anything if I can just think carefully. I control my destiny. Deep up in my mind I manifest it. Every morning I wake up obsessed and
we are back with another video with the helmet. This is going to be part 2. First one was pretty long, so if you haven't watched that yet, go and watch that first video, the one before this one. That way you get an idea of what we're doing here. But this is the part 2 of the continuing on with the fine line work for the second round of graphics. So I went ahead and worked ahead, just making sure everything's lined up perfectly, measuring, making my own templates, things like that. We let the base coat that we sprayed beforehand dry for at least an hour before we unmasked it, and this is kind of what we got after it's unmasked. So just ignore all the fine line, but it came out super awesome, really no issues. Just make sure when you are spraying and you're wanting to do the next thing super fast, make sure you let that base coat dry. So the longer you let it dry before you unmask something, the better off you'll be. The longer it will have to adhere to the surface. So now, like I said, I've already went ahead and worked on, so I've got everything on this side completely done. So you can kind of get the idea. Hopefully, there's a lot of tape on this, so we got this. We didn't change up too much, but I did change it a little bit. So we got this first big swoosh, and instead of ending it right here, I honestly just had it made into a big C. So the front of the helmet got the end of it, and I think it from far away, if you're looking at it from the side, I think it's gonna complete it a lot better. And I even thought about hanging the front off and just making it barely go over here, but I think that'll look kind of retarded, so I'm just gonna make it end right there. So we got this big old C, this stylized C to cover. Now a lot of this is going to be underneath like this portion of it, and this is going to be over top of it as well. So in these two areas, this graphic's going to be over top of that big old stylized C. And then after that, we got a smaller section, and it kind of does some really cool stuff around the back. I was going to just finish it and have it ran down here to finish it, but I don't want two of these big C's going on the same side. So what I did was I broke it up a little bit more, and I did something a little bit crazy with it. So you got it coming all the way front here, and then it disappears underneath this big graphic. So underneath big graphics, you can kind of have them do whatever you want them to do. You just got to make sure it makes sense when you're looking at it. So we got it coming around here, and then underneath here at some point it does cross over, and then it makes this X down here at the bottom. Ignore the fine line here. It's not really center, but yeah, that's what I ended up deciding to do in the middle here. So it's got a little bit of something. And then the last one, we got this other pointy graphic coming down, and I just had it finished all the way down. So all this is going to disappear underneath the big graphic. And same thing with up here. It's all going to disappear. This graphic's going to go over pretty much everything. I thought about having it disappear and having the yellow graphic go over top of it right here, but I have not decided. I'll decide that at the very end if I want to do that or not. So we get this last one. It just kind of completes. That way it looks all completed once you look at the back of this. And then I have got mostly everything transferred over to this side. And that's what we got going on. So I've already went ahead and started taping up the front where it kind of crosses over to make that C, that pointed edge. So when you're looking at it from head on, you're going to see a little bit of this on both sides. And then you're going to see where that comes together. So it just makes it look a little bit more finished, if you will. I didn't really want to put anything in the middle here because there's a piece that goes right here and it's going to be all white. So I figured the farther to the side it would make more sense because it's actually riding against this body line here on both of these edges. So it just makes more sense. And I didn't feel like putting anything in the middle just because I didn't want to really complicate it. I thought about doing like a stripe or something like that just to kind of follow this body line, but with everything we have going on right now, none of that would make sense to what these graphics are going to look like. And this stuff is all going to be yellow. So it's all going to be yellow, so it's going to be a lot of yellow, and then I'm going to like do the fade on the big C. So that's what we're going to be doing. So make sure to make all these colors come to life. So it's like everything in the front's going to be orange because this is going to be orange, and then it fades back and this is all going to fade into yellow, which I think is going to be really, really cool. And the back of this, what I'm thinking about doing is making this all orange down here and making it fade up to yellow. So like anything below this middle section here is going to start fading up into yellow. So that's what my plan is, to get all that painted on. And then yeah, but got a lot of work done. Now what I can do is go around and actually fine line mask and cut out all the unnecessary stuff I don't need, which I don't think there's anything I need to actually cut out within the graphics that are on it now. I just need to go around and mask it all up and then decide what's going to cross over what. That, you know, that's just up to you or the customer. They want certain things to cross over or whatever. It's just really up to you as the artist what you want to do with it. So I'll do that at the very end just to pick and choose what I want to do. And I might just have it all underneath of it. I don't know yet, but I would like to at least have one bar go, pretty much make the graphic go on top of it. So we might do that. And that just requires, if we want like this graphic right here to go over top of this bar, we're just going to have to sand this down a little bit and then base coat it, which is not a big deal. But we want to get that paint off of there because there's a kind of a hard edge line right there because we put a lot of paint on it. We put the yellow on it and then we put the orange on top of it. So just want to make sure you do knock those edges down and just kind of sand it flat before you do put that more base over top of it, or else you're going to have that line going through it. So just a little trick, a little tip, unless you just don't care if you're doing something for really cheap or for free. I still recommend doing it because you're going to see that line. It's going to be nasty because that's going to be mostly yellow up there. So that'll definitely show through on that yellow. But yeah. So now I'm going to take my 3/4, which is underneath the helmet, and I'm just going to go around and mask everything off and make it all completed. The last couple 20 minutes or so, 20-40 minutes, all I've been doing is going around measuring everything with my ruler from side to side to make sure all this stuff is within spec with the other side and something like that. It's really, you know, a lot of guys get everything perfect, and I strive to get everything as perfect as I can. But if it's off like maybe a 1/16 of an inch, you're not going to really notice it side to side. But you want to get it, your graphics and lines, as close as you possibly can. That way, somebody just can't come along and you know, it won't stand out as much if you get it as close as you possibly can. So I've just been spending the last few minutes measuring side to side, making sure everything's done right. I've cut some templates out for like this big C to make sure it was exactly like the other side, and so on and so forth, and just double checking your fine lines to make sure they're nice and smooth, nothing's going like kind of bouncy or crooked anywhere, and just looking at it, spinning this thing around a few times, looking at it, making sure everything's kind of symmetrical to where you want it, and just, like I said, pretty much looking at it, putting your hands on it, and just double checking everything. It's just part of it. You got to double check, triple check every single thing you do. So yeah, that's all I've been doing the last few minutes. So now we're going to get to masking this thing off. So once you get everything outlined as far as your graphics go, now you need to go through and look at your underlying graphics, or the graphics that are actually on top of the graphics you're getting ready to paint. Because now we need to go through and we need to mask those off. Like this big section, because this is coming up through here, so we need to mask this stuff off through here, and this little triangle right here. And then we need to mask this off because this is going to go over top of this. And you need to do that each layer of graphic and decide whether you want this over top of this piece or not. And this is where you're going to go through and actually just back mask everything and figure out which ones, like I said, that you want to go over top and which ones you want to go underneath. So this is why I waited to this end, because you can actually see the graphic better. Excuse me. You can see how the graphic is made that we're going to paint. So now I can go through it and actually figure out which one of these. It's probably going to be the middle one that this is going to go over top of it, and then this band's going to go over top of the yellow, the new graphics, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I need to go through and just mask all this stuff off the way I want it, and then we can finish taping the rest of the helmet on, and then it's pretty much spray time at that point. And this is what you end up with after everything is fully masked off. I've got all my bridges complete, back masked. I'm going to end up having the yellow graphic right here go over top of this band, so I'll need to sand that down just a little bit to get rid of those edges to make that completely flat so it does not show. But everything is completely outlined now and ready for final masking, which I'll use a lot of more tape, but I'll end up going with I got 1.5 inch tape of the purple stuff. I'll end up putting paper, using that 1.5 inch. Like this area right here gets completely covered, so I'll just use that 1.5 inch to fully cover that. Paper it, paper the front where I need to, the sides, and yeah, we'll be ready to spray right after that. So, but I'm gonna call it a night. This is pretty much the end of the day for me, so I'm gonna continue this on tomorrow. Shouldn't have but maybe another 30 minutes of final masking and prepping this thing and getting it ready for paint, and then painting won't take probably but 10 to 20 minutes to figure out everything and paint it. It'll fly by really quick. So yeah, it's pretty much gonna be it for the day, guys. I'll continue this on tomorrow, but this is why it takes forever to do graphics and buying a lot of tape. It's really expensive. It's not a cheap thing to do, but in the end it's totally worth it because you get something really cool, really one-off, something somebody else does not have. So just keep that in mind if you want something like this done, and you're surprised by the price. It's a lot of labor. It's a lot of detail-oriented stuff. So yeah, just be considerate of that. But yeah, we're going to continue this on tomorrow, guys. Everything is masked off, ready for paint. I'm just going through this area where we had the stripe that we're going to go over with this graphic. I'm just sanding the paint off so that way there's no line when you put paint on here. So little details like this that'll make everything stand out just that much better. All I'm using is 800. Just making sure you get inside those cracks right here, where it goes right up against that tape. You don't have to press hard when you're doing something like this. I've seen guys take base coat reducer and do this a little bit at a time. But since I don't have clear coat over the white part, I don't want to eat through the white. Trying to keep the white there for the most part because yellow covers the best over white. So once we get this done, I'll show you guys real quick. I've already done the other side, so this is what it looks like after you're done. So just make sure you get as close as you can to that tape. That when we peel this off, you're pretty much bridging it with this graphic. It's not really hard to do it, but it just takes some time because you don't want to sit here and sand your original white off if you're doing the same colors or your background color. You want to kind of keep it there for the yellow to use that as a ground coat. And what I'll do is I'll do the same thing like we did in the last video to these graphics. I will take a Scotch-Brite to them and I'll just kind of run it just to open that this white paint back up since it's been sitting for a while. I don't think there'll be an issue if I didn't do that, but it's extra insurance for me just in case I need to go back through and do touch-ups or anything like that. I don't have to worry about anything lifting on me by putting tape over it. A lot of guys will have issues with paint lifting after they do graphics or anything like that, and this could be one scenario of why it would happen if you did not, you know, if you had your base coat sitting for a very long time like I have this helmet. And I mean, I'm talking like months. I'm not talking a couple weeks or a couple days. It's been months since this helmet has been actually base coated this pearl white. So what that happens is that window for adhesion starts to close. So you got to go back through there. You can either scuff it like I do, which makes it a little bit messier, so you just got to really clean it off. Or you could take adhesion promoter, a good adhesion promoter, and spray this very lightly with adhesion promoter, and what that does is that'll soften this back up. But this is kind of with it being pearl, it's not really smooth, so I want to smooth that out. So what I'll do is I'll just take, like I'll show you, I'll just take this right here, this piece of 800, and I'll just lightly go over that white. And you know what I mean, you don't have to go crazy with it. You can just barely sand over it, and that will kind of open that back up for adhesion, because you're giving it a mechanical scratch. So, and that also, with this, with sandpaper rather than a Scotch-Brite, this also smooths out your surface a little bit better than what it already is. So if you're doing like a candy or something over top of this, and you're gonna put like a silver down first, you definitely want that silver to lay as smooth as possible, or else you'll just have issues when you lay your candy out. You'll notice it being kind of rough, which you can just bury it in clear, but why not just take the extra step and just do a little bit of scuffing here. It don't take long, so I'll do that to the whole thing. We'll get this thing on the stand. I'll double check all my tape, make sure everything's down nice and tight, and then we'll get to spraying. So we are about ready to spray. Everything's tacked off. I just want to show you guys this real quick. So if you're having issues with tape laying down, you either stretched it too much or your tape's not good. And yeah, you're just having issues with this like sharp edge stuff. So that's why you never want to stretch your tape when you're laying it. Just let it lay there and then get as good as you can with your fingernails and get it in there and tight. What I usually do before I spray is I take just a, you know, pretty new, this is a brand new putty scraper. Honestly, I forget, brain fart, I forgot what I call these things are called. Kind of stupid, huh? I got a whole box of them, I forget what they're called. And then I just get in here really good and I just start laying this stuff out. I've seen a lot of guys take a little bit of a heat gun to tape when it's done, and it kind of gives it that stick again too, which you can do. It's just sometimes these curves are so sharp and you're bending the tape so much that it doesn't want to actually stay there. So when you add that plus add the wetness of the paint hitting it, it's just a recipe for disaster. So I always go through here and I'll constantly do this. You know, you're gonna have to hit it more than once, and you just want to keep an eye on these edges right here, because you do not want your paint to blow through, especially if you don't have something already clear coated. If I already clear coated this, I wouldn't worry too much about it. I would still do it, but I wouldn't be so anal, because I could just take lacquer thinner and wipe it off, or base coat reducer, or honestly just sand it off if I got enough clear on it. But with not having any type of clear or sealer or anything to block it from the white underneath of it on the other side, I want to make sure that this is going to stay down for the long haul, because we're going to put this yellow on and then we're going to let it dry, and then we're going to do the tricky stuff with the orange again. Not a lot, just a little bit. We don't want to kill it, so that is the plan. So we're going to get this yellow going. I want to tack it off again. We're going to get some yellow sprayed. So I just went ahead and sprayed my first coat. Honestly, I wouldn't even call this a coat because it's not really covering anything. But there is a little bit of a science to why you want to do something like this, where you're not just hogging it on. For one, you don't want to hog it on. That way you're not locking in. You know, if you hog this paint on the first coat, not saying you can't get away with it, but you might have some issues later on when you go to peel your paint up or your tape up on the edges. So you want to just kind of mist it on there, not like dry or anything, but you want to just kind of lay that foundation out. That way it's going to hit the tape and it's going to kind of lock itself in on those edges, because those edges, when you start peeling this tape up, that's going to be, you know, that's your main focus, is how your edges are going to lay. So being able to lay this down a little bit lighter than normal for your first coat will actually lock that paint in there, to where when you peel this tape up, it's actually going to cut it like a razor. So you always want to do this when you're doing any type of graphics where you got a lot of tape covering anything, and then if you're doing like clear coat or something like that, and you're locking something in with artwork, you want to do that first coat just to lock it in there. That way you're not potentially putting too much paint on at once and it causing a reaction, or it's causing you not to actually bite into that paint that's already on there. So just a little tip, just like I said, a lot of people just will hog it on there and get away with it, but for me, I like to just kind of barely put a coat on there. I don't really call it a coat, even though there is color on it. That way it kind of just gives it that time to bite in there. So we're going to go ahead and put the second coat on, and this coat's going to be a little bit heavier than normal, because we already got that foundation for this to lock in. Looking really good. We got a piece of straggler right there. You guys see that? It's a piece of tape that has laid inside that base. So once that's dry, I'll get a razor and I'll pick that out. But we're gonna let this flash off and we're gonna put another third coat on. It's coming out really good. It's laying down really nice. See that tape in there? It's locking itself in there. So I'm gonna let this flash off, get that piece of straggler tape out of it, and put another third coat on afterwards. Last coat is on. So you could tell that fine line that was in these hard edges right here all stuck, just because he took that extra time, that little bit of 1 minute, maybe if 1 minute, just a few seconds with that putty spreader, and it locks everything in there nice and tight. That way you don't have to worry about lifting issues or anything like that. So came out really, really nice. And this is the same yellow we used before, but a lot of this is going to stay on here, and we're going to let this dry so we can come back and do the cool special effects with the orange. And we're just going to barely come up here and right here. We don't want to fully cover everything, but we want to just kind of mist it. This will be completely orange right here, and then it'll barely come up here, so it's like it's fading off. Probably do a little bit right here. But yeah, really, really cool. House of Color does stay, looks like it's actually wet, but it's starting to dry. House of Color base coat just has a shine to it when it is actually dry. That's just the way their solvent is. There's no hardener in this. It's just reducer and base coat. Their stuff just stays a little, it just stays shiny. That's just how it is. It looks like you put hardener in it, but there's no hardener in this. It's just base coat 2-to-1. Same thing with this side. It locked everything in really nice. Did not lift at all. So yeah, we're gonna let this dry for, again, probably a whole hour. That way I can come in here, spray my stuff on there, do everything I need to do, and then spray that orange on there. It won't be but a few minutes of actually spraying, and then yeah, it'll be pretty much done. And then we can take the mask off all this and go on to the next step. So I'll see you guys in roughly about an hour. All right, so we're back after about an hour or so. Filling it. It's pretty well dry. I always double check to make sure the paint with a piece of tape is gonna stick, because I want to end up masking these off right here. So I don't want to get any orange. I want to leave this yellow. So I'm gonna do, it's a very fine tape line right here, so I'm just doing this as slow as I can to make sure I get it right on that line. And then I want to kind of just trap all that in there so no way color can get in here. I mean, this tape's not going to be on here for very long. I just want to make sure, you want to make sure everything's sealed off. If you're taping up anything, just make sure your edges are sealed, because paint will find a way there. If it's open, it'll find a way there. So now comes the fun part, right? So we're going to do the same thing as we did in the last video with the last fade. We're just not going to do it as much on this. So I'm going to turn the helmet like this so you guys can actually see half of it. So First off, I'm gonna do the compound because in the front, I want a little bit of the yellow to come through. So the way I'm gonna do that, to let some of that yellow stay up here in the front, I'm gonna use compound. Because compound, if you didn't watch the last video, I recommend go watch the last video. I kind of explained this. This actually, the compound will actually create its own mask. So if you're doing like some type of radical like drips or something that's kind of cool and you know one off, this will do it. All you do is pretty much, this is a water-based product, so I just mix it up and then I just kind of fling it on there. Oops. It's kind of cool. I like that. So I like that. And then we're gonna go ahead, this does the exact same thing. I just got a different nozzle on it. So it does big old spats. So we're just gonna kind of fade it up to where we don't want the paint. So this is gonna create another layer of mask. You got to kind of work kind of fast because that glass cleaner will actually start becoming one. And the key to the spray away glass cleaner is you want a low air pressure or else you're just going to move it everywhere. that is pretty much, it looks like a mess, but when your base coat dries, you pretty much are gonna take a clean rag and just wipe it off. All that stuff will come off. Obviously the sprayway is gonna be dried on there, so it'll come off as like a film. So, and then the compound, it's gonna get a little bit hard because of the solvent that's gonna be on top of it. It's gonna be dry, so you just gotta put a little bit of pressure with the rag. I always use blue towels. That's what I use to clean everything in my shop as far as paint goes. So I'll just use one of those and I'll wipe off. Just make sure your base coat is actually dry, and then you'll be set. So the only thing I'm gonna do is, I should have done it before I didn't even really think, I thought about it, but I was like, I'm not gonna get paint up there. But the overspray kind of hit a little bit up here. I mean, it's not bad. You're probably not gonna notice it, really. But I might just hit it with a little bit of yellow right here just to kind of knock all that stuff back. And that's gonna be pretty much all that I'm gonna do. And then I'm gonna let this stuff dry. You see how it gets hard? And I just popped it like a pimple and all that stuff is coming out. So yeah, just let your base coat get as dry as you can. And then you're just gonna wipe it off. And I'll show you guys that once it's all wiped off and what it looks like. It looks really cool if you haven't seen the last video. The last video came out awesome. It just makes it like a grungy one-off, like a crazy textures is what it really does. It's like a grunge effect. So I'm gonna go ahead, fix the yellow spots, spray a little bit of that yellow back in there, and then we're gonna call it done. And then by that time, everything should be dry enough. I'll just wipe everything off and I'll show you guys what it looks like. You guys ready to see the final shots of what this thing's gonna look like? I went ahead and wiped everything off, glass cleaner and the compound, and this is what you end up getting when you do this. You just can't replicate that any other way besides doing it that way. Obviously, if you're doing a large area, you got more to work with. You can put more on, you can take more off, you can layer this. I've done multiple colors doing this. It's really cool, but when you do multiple colors, you got to think what you want to show more of, so you got to do it backwards. That's the only thing with this, is if you're doing a lot of layers and you want certain colors to show through, you got to layer it backwards. Or you can do like a silver, do the splats, put candy over it. You know, there's a lot of things you can do with this. As long as you're using solvent-based paint. Water-based paints you cannot do this with. It'll just wipe the paint off with it because it's water mixed with water. Obviously, even the glass cleaner, it's going to pretty much wipe that color away. The color is just going to come out all nasty looking. So it's only with solvent paints this can be done with. It's just one thing that's really cool. It's really easy to do. It's really fast. As long as it's kind of somewhat warm in your shop, you can wipe it off fairly quickly too. It's just, as you can see, as you can tell by the helmet, that does, I mean, the compound does get everywhere. It's compound. So you want to make sure you get it all off the paint on the surface you're painting on. That way you don't have any white streaks sitting and drying on top of your paint. So that's the only thing that I would recommend. Just be tedious when you're wiping the stuff off to make sure you get all the compound off, because I don't really honestly know what happens if you accidentally leave compound on it. It's probably going to get hard, because that's what compound does. When it's sitting out and the sun hits it, it dries up and it gets hard, so it might just flake off. I don't know. I've never had that issue really. I've just always taken my time and clean it thoroughly and making sure everything's completely off of that surface I just painted, because it's fresh paint. You got to think it's fresh paint, guys. So just take your time, and you can, like I said, you can pretty much do this on anything that you're painting. I'm just wiping accidentally got a compound on my car, so I'm just wiping it off. So yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. Just make sure you get all the white streaks, and you're probably going to go through some towels if it's your first time, because you're going to want to take your time to clean all of it off. But other than that, that's pretty much it, guys. Like, it's that simple. It's not that complicated to do it. And I always like taking my fingers like I am now. And sometimes if you got some fingernails, see, that chip just came off. So sometimes once you get it going and you know there's more to go and it's just not coming off, you can take your fingers, or your finger, if you got fingernails, you can do your fingernail and just kind of lift it off. Your paint's not going to come off when you do that. So that's just another little trick to get it all unmasked, because that's what you're doing, is it's creating its own mask. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. So if you want to see the rest of this helmet finished, you're going to have to come in for the next video. I'm going to cut it off here. I'm going to make this one nice, short, and sweet. The last one was almost 2 hours long. It should be out right now as I'm recording this. So the last one was a little bit longer than what I wanted it to be, but I wanted to show most of everything that I'm doing. There is no edits on my videos. It's straight through. Only thing I do that's considered editing is, I might place another video like my intro, or I might, end my clip sooner than start another clip, and I just tie them all together. But there is no editing. I don't delete anything. I show you guys exactly how I film it is how it's going. So you're gonna see a lot of the stuff that a lot of people don't show, a lot of the mistakes I make. You're gonna see, and you're gonna see me on how to fix them, because that's one thing about being a good painter is anybody can make mistakes, right? But it's how you go about fixing them that make you great. So once you figure out how to fix your mistakes or to hide your mistakes, that's when you become really great at what you do. So I'm going to show you guys all that with what's going on right then at that moment. So no editing, none of that. I like the raw footage stuff, and I think a lot of people like it, because now everything is fake. Everything's either a skit or it's edited so much that you can't really tell what's real and what's not. So I think the raw footage is the way to go, and that's what I continue to do for you guys, is really no edits. Some of the videos kind of iffy on some of my videos. I'm still, learning how to do all that stuff. It's been a year. I've only been doing this a year, so just, maybe one day I'll have enough to buy better equipment, lighting, things like that, and make my videos a little bit more professional looking, because right now it's just raw footage. So if you like this type of stuff, share the videos, like them, comment down below if you want to learn anything else I didn't go over, maybe I skipped something, comment down below. I'll be happy to help you, free, no worries. So yeah, you guys got to stay tuned in for the next video if you want to see this thing unmasked. And then we're going to clear coat it, then we're going to sand it back down, and we're going to pinstripe it. So if you want to see all that in its final form before clearing, come back for the next video. Until then, I'll see you guys later.